I'm going to talk to Jay because Jay had a bit of a follow-up on our last conversation here. So I think it's a good segue. Jay, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, what's up? How you doing, Dan? Forgot the co-host name. Good to see you.
This is
I
Josh
kind of wanted to
Entner.
follow Josh. Oh, geez, thanks, Josh. All right, so I just wanted to follow up based on what the last call was talking about, in terms of the proposed ban that Canada is supposed to have in terms of Holocaust denial. I think what a lot of people don't really recognize in terms of how the U.S. does news is that there's a lot of opinion that is layered into that. Like you were talking about Tucker Carlson, that's entirely opinion, right? That's just him giving his opinion on things. That's not actually the news. We do need to be careful in regards to what speech we allow, because certain speech will highlight certain things about people, and it's kind of propaganda, not in the propaganda in the true sense, as in it will cause you to dislike a specific set of people, in a sense as in you'll blame them for a certain thing. So I really think that we should be cautious when we think about things about Holocaust denial. It should be something that we shouldn't allow, just as we don't allow someone to scream fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah, I think people there's two things I think about, because one of those things is if you sanction something as protected by law, immediately people begin to question it. Okay, so look at what happened with COVID when vaccine hesitancy has always kind of been the thing. It has quadrupled, if not more so, because of how we're getting a little bit of mic interference there on your end, Jay. So if you could fix that for us, I think that'd be great. I'm going to go ahead and mute you down until we can do that. But when the vaccine's first coming out, right, and people were talking about the hype behind them, so many people were hesitant about it just because of how many people were saying, oh, this is a totally safe thing to do. The same people who were getting vaccines since they were children in order for them to go to public schools are now worried about it because so many people are talking about how legit it is. Like, the human brains are just kind of stupid sometimes. And we're just like, oh, well, now I'm kind of suspicious because everybody's talking about how cool this thing is. And that's what I think about when I think about the Holocaust denial stuff. Because as soon as you enshrine that into law, I almost guarantee you there will be more people who will become Holocaust denialists and skeptics when that happens. Now, that's not the best reason to say why you shouldn't do that, but that's a concern I have. And the other concern is, we have to figure out which speech actually causes harm. Because if we're going to make a law that says, hey, we can't have this kind of speech anymore, we better be pretty damn specific about what we're saying, because you can interpret that in ways that may not be great for anybody. Like when we talk about slander laws, okay, there's damages that happen there, and you can point to objective facts about what happened and what doesn't happen. Holocaust, that's a historical event that has happened, and yes, there are living survivors of that, but it's mostly affecting the people who are descendants of the Jewish faith, but also of the Jewish race, and just the their livelihood that's being harmed there as well. Because if you start to believe, oh, these people are part of this shadowy organization and they're all of a specific race, suddenly you develop this prejudice there, and that's just harder to demonstrate.
Yeah, you don't hear people screaming the Holocaust never happened in a crowded room and people getting trampled. So you don't get direct harm. So it's definitely
this is when there are rallies and stuff that happen. I mean, there are people that make decisions in their private time that do affect people, right?
Yeah, but you can't see it directly, like the shouting fire thing.
It's
that's
harder
what I'm
to
talking
demonstrate.
About. That's exactly what I'm saying. There is harm for people, and it does promote a bad way of thinking. So that's why I keep going back and forth on the idea on this, on whether it's a good idea, because there's definitely harm to a community, and it does promote the white supremacy ideals of taking away, because we see the white supremacists, the neo-Nazis out there right now, and they're trying to make themselves look better by making this something that's false. So it does promote harmful propaganda, but is it enough where we can take it away as there's free speech?
Well, can you litigate it? That's what I want to know, right? Because if you can't litigate it, then it doesn't matter. Right, like the Black Lives Matter stuff was happening. That's another example. I was out there on the streets, marching with other people, but that whole year like when that was really picking up, like I heard all kinds of people saying, yeah, I don't know about this whole Black Lives Matter thing. And then suddenly like people became skeptical of it again. It's like, how do you demonstrate legitimacy? Can you demonstrate legitimacy without enshrining it to law? Do we have to enshrine something into law in order for it to like be the best solution for how our society gets along? I don't know. What I do know is there's been more harm than ever caused from free speech because of the open platforms that we have now, and just I don't have to talk about the history of Facebook and how that has contributed to the number of hate groups in this country growing. I think everybody who watches the show is probably familiar with that. So how do we deal with that? I don't know. I guess that's what I have to say at the end of the day. I'm gonna unmute you now, Jay. I hope we got your audio issues fixed. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I hope I fixed my audio issue. Sorry about that. But yeah, I do think we do need some regulations in regards to what can be said, because these are topics that will fuel hope some people view a certain sect of people, and it can cause them to have certain beliefs that they will act on because our beliefs inform how we act. So it is kind of a touchy thing, which I do agree. I don't think we need to like maybe ban it completely, but maybe we could look at what Germany did, seeing that they are the progenitor of where this kind of came from. So maybe we could look at how Germany addressed the issue, which, mind you, Germany teaches about the Holocaust straight across the board in all their classes and stuff. And I think maybe that approach will have people looking at things differently, right? And then that will kind of help us to say, okay, we can't talk about this topic, but we can talk about this topic, and we need to ensure we frame it correctly. Because what happens a lot of times is people frame it a certain way, and then a different message gets displayed.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, Jay. You, as a man who lives in Texas, right? You don't have to drive very far to see people like waving Confederate flags and stuff everywhere, right? And like that's displaying of an ideology, but it's also some people's just way of saying fuck you. Like they really just don't like being told what to do. They don't like that this is a controversial thing, and they just want to put it out there.
Yeah.
So are they going to have to face the same consequences as somebody that has like a swastika out? Like I don't know. It's a hard issue. It's a hard issue to process, and man, I am not an expert on it. I'm really glad you guys can see that. But yeah, I'm not the one that's going to be making the judgment call here at the end of the day. But I'm glad that we discussed some things, because as people who are, again, of a minority group, in that we are atheists, right? And that we are, the law has always been skewed against atheists. We can see how it might not play things in our favor, right? And how people can use that against us as a group. And so I can relate to that and see how that can affect other groups as well that I'm not a part of and have been very clearly disenfranchised and very clearly the victims of violence, which I have not been. And I don't think most atheists in the United States are, although it does happen. So
very crazy. And as a Black immigrant in the South, I echo your concerns there, because I do see it. So
I'm sure you see it in Florida too, Jay.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. I
That's
do
the
not
most
doubt that for a second.
state.
Yeah, we have our own little issues here.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling in and giving your follow-up thoughts, because it's definitely a topic that deserves a pretty long conversation.
Yes, it's not a black and white issue at all.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Jay, thanks so much for calling into the show. Appreciate your thoughts. Any follow-up on that, Josh? I know I talked a lot there.
No, you were doing it pretty good. I still think education is the best way to combat this kind of thing. I do think we need, like we were talking about earlier, Josh's school programs for teaching about how to read journalism and how to get into journalism. I think that's the best way to combat this.
I used to be hopeful in that, but like, how many people have done absolutely fine in the public school system and have actually turned out to be total jerks? Right.
That's why I think education is the only way we can fix it. But the education system needs to be changed. Like a lot of what was going on, what they were asking for during those Black Lives Matter protests, which would have like put money back into schools instead of just into the police department, put it into like money that could raise up neighborhoods. That's a way of combating this misinformation too.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, I live in a state that like has it in the history books that Moses was a real person and like wrote, parts of the Old Testament and stuff like that. That's in some curriculum.
Does your state believe in the magical stuff too? Like he pushed the water aside, or
I
or
saw
did
the
they?
page that they wrote out. They didn't talk about all that. I think they did say he wrote the Pentateuch and stuff, which is kind of crazy, and also talking about its importance in Western morality. So that's fun. It's
I
very
worry
cool.
about some of the school books I hear. I any state that's even like trying to push creationism in and stuff like that just like scares me.
Yeah, yeah. We just don't have a lot of great policies for the information age. We weren't ready. Humanity was not
No.
ready for the internet.
There was
That's my
there was like
takeaway.
an initial push of like people finding good information, but it was because it was the computer savvy people that were first getting on the internet, and now it's accessible to your grandmother who maybe doesn't know how to discern information very well.
Yeah, yeah. I have no more thoughts on that. It just makes me sad. I think we should move on to some other callers.